Welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be going live today on all things water. It's been a while that I've promised everyone that we will be doing this webinar. I hope everyone can hear me. So do let me know if you can hear. And we're going to be running through all the ins and outs of drinking water today. It's really important that we understand that the water that we drink is not so much about what is in the water, but quite a little bit more about what's not in the water. So please give me a thumbs up or a heart or something if you can hear me, because I'm trying to use a special kind of microphone, so I hope the sound's absolutely fine. So let's begin. What's the most important thing you need to know about water? Water obviously is absolutely beneficial to life, really important for different detox processes in our body, and most importantly, it assists in the building and the regeneration of cells. It also helps the body to sweat, and I talked about it a lot in my mastermind before. If you're not sweating, you are likely very imbalanced, so please take that as a very quick and easy tip. If you are not sweating, some people might say, oh, I just don't sweat, I'm not that kind of a person. The body's likely dehydrated or there is major imbalance. So water in our body does help with sweating, detoxification, and muscle contraction. So everything that you do in life will be made better by having the best source of drinking water that you can for you and your family. It also goes beyond just inside of the body and the way that the body assimilates water, but also it is for the health of the hair and the skin. So a lot of people would say that they're bathing or showering in certain waters, their hairs become affected into different areas and locations that they go to. In some countries they feel well and their skin feels good, and in others it doesn't. So I'm going to run through all of that and how you get your hands on the best water that you possibly can for where you live and for what you need water for. The number one thing to understand is that there's only one great measure of how well you feel, and that is your own bodily symptoms. If you have children struggling with eczema, or if you yourself know that you've got psoriasis or dry scalp, or you're always feeling extremely thirsty, or you don't sweat, there are certain symptoms that you know are causing you issues, then please make note of those. And then when you make change to your water and you're able to see what I've got to say today, then hopefully you would see an alleviation of those symptoms, and that would tell you really quickly, without having to do any expensive tests and stuff, that the water that you're drinking is right for your body. So how is water, or at least what is in water, measured or tested? There's one kind of industry standard for measuring the solids, or the total dissolvable solids in water, which is called a TDS meter. And I learned about this when I moved to Dubai, because I had someone come over and check the TDS in our water. Total dissolvable solids in water can be good and bad. And this is where a lot of people's confusion comes in. There's certain distilling systems and reverse osmosis systems that will remove all of the total dissolvable solids out of your water and take that reading down to zero. I want to explain to you today why we need to understand what that reading measures, and why, if you are given a liquid that's said to be water that has a zero TDS, that you need to kind of think twice, because that's not the be all and end all when it comes to water, and I'm going to explain a little bit why. So TDS in the water can consist of inorganic salts, stuff like potassium, magnesium, sodium, chloride. In parts of the country like England, for example, where the water's harder, scale can come off of some electrical appliances and stuff and add to the TDS reading of your water. Dried pipes, rust in the water pipes can add to the TDS reading of your water. And so you can see how we could quickly put those into two columns of good and bad. We want magnesium, we want potassium, we want certain salts and trace minerals in our water, because it helps us to hold on to the water and feel more hydrated, and the body needs minerals. If you do look around, you will find that most people are suffering from an extreme lack of minerals within their body. And that is why I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about the best ways to get those minerals into your body. And water is only the second best. It's in actual fact food grown in really rich and organic soil that will give you all the trace minerals that you need. But we can use water as another way to get minerals into our body, and I'll tell you how. So good minerals can come from things like urban runoff, where water's running over areas, soil, as I spoke about, where water runs and filtrates through soil. Different geographical regions will have different makeup of good TDS or inorganic salts in those regions. So you'll find in some areas the silica in water is higher, or the potassium or the magnesium, which is why you might feel better or worse depending on where you are. And then the negative things in water, which we all know about. A lot of cleaning and disinfectant products are added into big water facilities where they do clean the water and try to get rid of bacteria and pathogens, which is extremely important for us. But also things like fluoride, chlorine, and chloride are added into our water. Now, why is that bad? Well, first and foremost, I've spoken a little bit about fluoride. Please, if you can avoid it in toothpastes, try and get a hydroxyapatite or fluoride-free toothpaste. We're looking at launching that over at Us Organic, but we do not need fluoride build up in our body. I'm not going to get into that on the live today. You can go and do a little bit of research if you'd like. Chlorine is also another one that's used to disinfect and clean water, as you know, case in point, swimming pools. But in the body, it is detrimental over long periods of time. It is actually said by a number of organizations that healthy water is water that can be consumed over a long period of time that doesn't have a detrimental impact or build up of negative kind of chemical compounds in the body. But we know for a fact that for some people who are very sensitive and might have high toxic load from other areas of their life, that it doesn't take very long for water to have an impact on the thinning of the hair, etc. And chlorine buildup in the body will stop you or your children ever being able to absorb any iodine, which is extremely important in the diet. You'll see an imbalance there. And chloride will have a very strong and very obvious impact on your hair, which I've actually seen here living in Dubai. And a lot of women who are living in Dubai will have noticed that the levels of chloride do affect the hair. So what are we going to do about it? Let's have a quick little think about high TDS versus low TDS. I talked to this a lot to people about this, and you don't need to get so technical, but I just want you to understand that if someone came to you and said, this reverse osmosis system, this filtration system is going to take the TDS, it's the way they kind of sell water filters, down to zero in your house and you'll be happy. Well, a study was done on 4 cups of liquid that were akin to water, and each of them read for a 0 TDS. They were run through a certain filter and they came out the other end with 0 TDS, and anyone testing with the TDS meter would have been like, great, let's drink it. When in actual fact, one was acetone, nail polish remover, has a 0 TDS. So I want you to quickly understand that just because the total dissolvable solids of water can be as close to 0 as you like, there are other contaminants that TDS does not read for. Case in point, lead. The second piece of cup of distilled water that was tested was 50 times the recommended average allowance for lead, and the recommended average allowance for lead should be 0, but the tolerance allowance for lead, and that came out of this filter with a 0 TDS. So don't get sold on TDS or stuff like that. Rather understand that some dissolvable solids in water are needed, like magnesium, potassium, and sodium, and others we need to test for in other ways. It's very difficult to understand how to do it. In fact, the only real way to really get to the bottom of the water that you're drinking is to send it off to a lab. So I see there's Jasmine talking about a distiller. I want to run through that quickly now. So what do we do about it? Let's look at all the different ways in which we can move forward. We have a beautifully available tap water. It's easy, it's convenient, and we're super lucky that in this modern world that water comes out of the faucets in our home. But we do have to remember, I say it all the time, that anything that's free and anything, well, we pay for it, but anything that is convenient is often, there might be a little bit of a catch. So let's look into it. For me, the best place to source water from, if you're lucky enough, would be borehole water or water from the land, deep well water that has then been cleaned or uncontaminated. If you have access to that type of water, at Us Organic we use only borehole water from the land in England to make our broth, because remember that if we have water that is contaminated with lead or aluminium or other heavy metals, fluoride, chloride, chlorine, as I've mentioned, if you then go and cook with it and you boil it and you distill it, especially by way of bone broth, it can then concentrate the negative impacts in that water. So if you can get your hands on borehole water, fantastic. Let's look at what's next. The 3 simple ways of kind of moving through water are, you're either going to distill your water, which is a gravity kind of led distillation system. You're going to filter your water with a number of different stages of filtration. These can be under counter or whole of house, or otherwise you're going to use what's called a reverse osmosis system. Now, there's lots of experts who will give you your 2 cents on these things. The way in which people look at it is that they tend to kind of it's a confirmation bias, like whatever it is that you're using and whatever it is that you're happy using is what it is that you might recommend. I'm going to just give you the facts on all of them and then let you make up your mind for yourself. If you've heard of a Berkey filter, which is a very well-known distillation system, there's recently been a huge amount of controversy around that distillation system and that filter. Why? Because people were trusting that that filter was lab tested, which it was, but in the small print actually said that the lab testing that was the bog standard or the kind of like absolute lowest hanging fruit, Berkey didn't meet those, but no one ever told anyone about that. It really goes back to the way that I talk a lot through my mastermind and through my channel. If you're being told something and it doesn't feel right, don't listen. Think and learn for yourself. Case in point, a number of things that have happened on the earth in the last couple of years. Think for yourself. So everyone that ran down and went down the kind of Berkey hole were really struggling with, well, at least trusting, and now feel betrayed. And you can see a million different stories online about how I was betrayed by this brand, I was betrayed by that brand, and none of it shocks me. Case in point, the Johnson & Johnson's talc case that's busy going on. Baptiste dry hair shampoo is also being taken to court. We never really hear about this kind of stuff in real life, but it is happening. So what happened with Berkey was that yes, it was removing lead and other contaminants in the water as the water distilled through the system, but there was some flaw in the system, and the aluminium, which is extremely detrimental to our nervous system and our health, was something like 10 or 20 times more when the water had come through the distiller, meaning that because of the mechanism in which the water was being distilled using steam and that kind of gravity-led distillation process, there was actually a leaching of aluminium into the water. So I'm not saying all distillation systems are bad, but I'm saying don't listen to everything that you read and everything that you say. A gravity-fed water system will distill the water, running it through, like I said, using steam, and it will always come out at around a pH 7, which is quite nice for the body. Ideally, we want to be drinking water between 7 and 8.5 pH, but I wouldn't worry about the pH of your water unless you want to learn a little bit more about water ionization, which I'll talk about at the end. At the moment, we really just want our water to be as clean as it possibly can, free from contaminants like fluoride, chloride, aluminium, lead, etc., and full of beautiful natural salts like potassium, magnesium, and other minerals that I mentioned earlier. The next way of filtering a water would be an under-counter or a whole-of-house water filter. Now, these are the two that I've worked the most with. I've worked with under-counter, whole-of-house, and reverse osmosis system. Why? Because for me at the time, the distillers that sit on top of the counter take up a lot of space, and I've always had small kitchens. So please feel free to look into the distillation process if you feel that rings true for you, because there is a lot of goodness in distillation, but also look into what happened with Berkey, and if you have a Berkey yourself, look into if there's any compensation or anything going on there. If you're using a filtration process that is whole of house or under counter, here are the two kind of biggest benefits. Whole of house, for me, if you're in a freestanding home, is an absolute no-brainer. Really just get a system. It's normally quite compact, and it plugs onto the mains where the mains of water come into your home. They can be quite cost effective. I've got one on the link in my bio. You change the filter out every 2 years. And you get money back when you recycle your old filter. And what I loved about that was I knew that if I was upstairs showering, whatever I was doing, the water was filtered, and it was really, really impactful for our family and made a huge difference on our health when we started to filter. And that was at a time when we were living in Fulham in London. When we came to Dubai, we moved into an apartment, and a whole of house filtration system wasn't that easy. So I looked into all the different things that were available, including structuring your water, structured water machines, countertop water filters, fridge water filtration systems, little clay, or you'll see kind of like, it looks like layers almost, so like of the layers of the earth heads or filtration things that fit on the top of devices. And all of them were unfortunately substandard unless we went for quite a heavy duty 7-stage plus filtration system that got input underneath our sink. And then I had someone come and look at our TDS and measure our water for bacteria and measure our water for heavy metals, and we had a really great outcome. Not only did it affect the way in which we felt drinking and cooking with that water, but also had a great impact on my hair, because as I mentioned, when I came to Dubai, I really struggled because all the water in Dubai is run through big reverse osmosis plants and then has a lot of chloride in it for reasons that are unbeknownst to me, but it can affect hair. So that under-counter water system, look into it, ask the right questions, make sure you understand that these people are not just selling you a zero TDS, which gets sold, by the way, in reverse osmosis, because I'll explain a little bit about that in a moment, but get a good, really strong 7-stage plus filtration system that will remove heavy metals, that will remove contaminants, and that will remove bacteria. Now, the interesting thing is you'll be told, oh, you can pay extra for this UV lamp and this UV light that will take away any pathogens in your water. But if you are filtering water from your faucet, which you most likely are, I want you to understand that those pathogens are taken care of at municipal level. So it might be a little bit of a waste of your money. It's highly unlikely you're going to get water through your faucet before your filter that's full of any kind of live bacteria or pathogen. So a UV light would kind of be null and void, but a UV light would be ideal if you're using well water or borehole water. So when your water runs through that 6-7 stage filtration process, it comes out of your faucet and you will be happy to drink it. It's filtered, it's easily accessible, and it's what we call alive. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about dead and alive water in a minute and how these types of filtered water compared to bottled water. So the third kind of detox filtration system is called a reverse osmosis system. I've worked with this system because my husband was born in the Bahamas and they have to reverse osmosis most of their water because they're on a small island in the middle of the sea. Reverse osmosis is excellent if you have salt or saline water that you want to convert to drinking water. It removes the total dissolvable solids in all the water down to an absolute flat zero. Now, there is myths about water with a flat zero then leaching minerals out of your body. So you drink that water and it leaches minerals from your body because it has no minerals in it. Remember what I told you earlier, total dissolvable solids are both good and bad. So if you have 0 TDS in your water, you've got no potassium, you've got no magnesium, you've got no sodium, and you've got none of the good inorganic salts that you actually want to get within your body. The negative effect of that I really learned over time from drinking RO water without remineralizing it was an extremely unquenchable thirst and was a kind of diuretic effect. Why? Because water without any TDS in it goes straight through the body and also doesn't hydrate as well as water that might have potassium, magnesium, and other trace minerals. So most people that are using reverse osmosis systems, that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But you will need to remineralize your water because you will be thirsty and you will feel more dehydrated than you should just by nature of the fact of there being a 0 TDS. Also important to note what I said to you earlier, a 0 TDS in water doesn't mean that water is 100% clean. Remember that we measured acetone with a TDS meter, nail polish remover, which is pure acetone, and that came out as a 0 TDS. And we measured water with 50 parts per million over and above what was recommended of lead in that water, and that came out as a 0 TDS. So if you really are serious about your water, you can send it into a local lab, a sample of your water that you've drunk once it's been filtered, and see what they say. But ideally, as I started off saying, if you are feeling better in yourself, you are feeling hydrated, you love the taste of your water, because a very low TDS, closer towards the 0 mark, the water tastes extremely flat, which is why in many instances people might add rock salt, pink Himalayan salt into their water, because it does allow your body to hold onto the water tighter, and it does allow you to drink less water and feel more hydrated. I don't think everyone needs to be chugging so much water all day long. It's a little bit of a myth. You should be satiated and hydrated by very normal amounts of water, a couple of glasses here and there. You don't need to be pushing to drink water. But that will only come if you have the right minerals, trace minerals in your water. So please do think about that. If you are going to go for any of those filtration systems, I recommend working with them, seeing how you feel. Reverse osmosis systems tend to be more expensive, and counter filtration systems are more expensive than countertops, but this is really worth investing a little bit of money in. So make the decision for yourself and see how you feel. Please feel free to reach out to me if you want to know anything more, because it's a huge big minefield of a topic, and it's really important that we understand what works for us, what's within our budget, and what's going to make us well. I wanted to quickly run through dead and alive water, which is extremely important. When water moves and jumps and goes through pipes and over rocks and streams and down mountains, etc., it gathers negative ions, which is energy, which is the liveness effectively of the water, and that is really, really healthy for us. We know negative ions are important. When we walk down on the beach, we get access to negative ions. Certain things in our life, forests, etc., nature brings access to negative ions. So alive water is fantastic. Water that's coming out of your faucet is going to be fairly alive because it's bumping, moving, and going along. Tap water that's been put in a bottle 6 months, 6 years, 2 years ago, it doesn't have any of that kind of energy, so it's more dead water. But tap water will be clean, albeit dead. Bottled water will be clean, albeit dead. So filtered water for the majority of your life through your tap, in my opinion, is not 100% perfect. 100% perfect is we could all dig a well, clean that water and drink from the land, but that's not ideal for everyone or possible at all. So I would say that filtering your tap water is perfect. And then when and if you need to, you can drink bottled mineral water. Now, you can go and have a look at the TDS of bottled mineral water. Fiji water, for example, has a TDS of 12, which would tell you that if a reverse osmosis system is bringing the TDS down to 0, Fiji likely has more minerals in it. It has high levels of silica, which have excellent impact on the skin and on the hair. So you will see that if you're consuming or getting access to that mineral, which is higher in certain geographical locations compared to others, you'll see an impact in your hair and your skin. Some people will just drink tap water all the days, but we have to remember there's dead water, and also importantly that bottled water is set in plastic, and especially here in Dubai, the water travels throughout the day and the heat or the temperatures get really, really high, and the BPA and other things can leach from the plastic into the water. So you're never quite sure of the measure of water when it was bottled compared to when it arrives at your door, which is why I would always advocate for glass, but shipping large amounts of glass around the place is extremely expensive and also is not that practical and also is not that ideal for the environment, which is why, again, I would go back to one of the 3 distillation methods that I talked to you about. I wanted to also talk about water and hair and water and skin. So I do a lot of work with families that are suffering with eczema, with children that are itching, that have rashes, with people that are noticing that they put their softeners on in their house and the skin flares up, and then they switch the softener on and the skin kind of dampens down. Please remember that our skin is the most absorbent organ in the body, and it will absorb the negative and the positive of what is in your water. So if you've got high levels of zinc, if you've got high level zinc, lead, if you've got high levels of aluminium, if you've got chloride, chlorine, fluoride in your water, it will go straight through your skin. And so I always recommend, if you go with what I suggested earlier, and you can go back and watch this video, I'll post it on my channel if you missed the earlier part, that filtering the water that comes through your shower head and your bath is extremely important. I talk a lot in my eczema videos about detox baths, Epsom salts in your bath, iodine in your bath, because most people are deficient in iodine. They don't know how to supplement with it. And a quick patch test for that is to put a drop of iodine in a dropper onto your hand or onto the back of your arm or wrist here, and see how long it takes for that to absorb and disappear. And the sooner that it sinks into the skin, the more you know that the body is in need of iodine. You can put iodine in your bath, a couple of droppers. You can put Epsom salts, you can put mustard seeds for congestion. You can put bentonite clay for detoxing of heavy metals. However, if you are bathing in water full of chloride and chlorine, can you kind of understand how kind of pointless that is? So please have a little think. You can also get some really good filters that just screw onto the head of the tap or the shower if, like us, you can't get a whole of house water filter where you're living. So filtration for water for the hair and for the body is also extremely important, especially for little newborn babies and for children and for anyone with sensitive skin, psoriasis, sufferers, topical steroid withdrawal, eczema into adulthood. A filter on your water will make a big difference. Exposure to chlorine for the skin as well. When I was a young child and I was exposed to chlorine, my hair would turn green in certain swimming pools, and I had to wash it with tomato ketchup because of the toning, as you imagine, red and green toned down the green in my hair, but also had a very, very detrimental impact on my skin. So that is why I've been experimenting, and I think I have one amazing client I think he's in Florida. He called me up one day in Dubai, and he's like, "Hi, yeah, I've got your number, and I want to talk to you about my pool. I'm so excited I put peroxide in my pool." So when I moved to Dubai, I phoned anyone that would listen to me to try and understand how I might clean my pool with peroxide instead of with chlorine, because we're always in the pool here in Dubai, and the chlorine exposure was aggravating the eczema in my little one, and I just didn't like it for myself or for my children. And so what was absolutely fantastic was we figured out how to clean our pool using hydrogen peroxide. It's half the cost of chlorine. It's so beneficial because the water is so clean and healing, and hydrogen peroxide in itself is extremely healthy as a disinfectant for the body. It helps clear ear infections. It helps with wound healing. It is really, really effective in that it's actually, I can't remember the makeup of hydrogen peroxide. I think it's H2O2, but it's basically just one molecule extra of oxygen. And so it's very oxygenating for the body. So if you want to learn more about that, please send a DM hydrogen peroxide, and I can talk to you a little bit about swimming pools and the way in which we keep our pool clean. And then also, after you have swum in a pool, if you don't have access to a hydrogen peroxide or a saltwater pool, you can use certain kind of hacks and tricks for your children. Eating a diet high in iodine or seaweed is absolutely brilliant because it helps the body to assimilate chlorine and get rid of it in both the hair and the skin. And chloride really is actually the one that detriments the hair more so than chlorine. But chlorine for itself, in itself, is definitely not good to build up in the body. I see Vivi talking about a homeopathic remedy after swimming. That is fantastic. Also hugely supportive of assimilating chlorine, especially if your children are swimming in hot, heated pools, because when the pool is heated, it opens up the pores in the child's body, and that chlorine comes in doubly fast. So please have a little think about that. I also wanted to talk to you about the other things that are kind of trending in the moment around water that a lot of people had asked me about, and that was the pH of water, the structuring of water, and the alkalinity, which actually links quite directly, apologies, to the pH. So let me start with the pH of water. Ideally, as humans, we should be drinking between 7 to 8.5 pH of water. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about Berkey water filter, what's going on with them, distilled water filter, distillers, whatever they call, distillation systems. And I did say that distillation systems will result in a pH of around about 7. But you can look at pH on certain water bottles like Fiji and other waters. Ideally, we want to be drinking a water of pH 8.5. Anything too acidic is not good for the body, and anything too alkaline just becomes acidic again when it hits your stomach acid, if you think of how acidic your stomach acid is. But what I've learned outside of the water that we're drinking, which should be within that range, is that if you are able, by using a water ionizer, to affect the pH of water, you'd be blown away by what you could do with water that is more alkaline and more acidic on the scale. I've been about 2 years working with a water ionizer. There's 2 on the market. There's one that is known by everyone called Kangen, and I kicked the tires on that one a little bit. And if anyone wants to talk to me privately about that, I will. And there's another one called Life. I looked at where they were made, a little bit like what I did with Fierce Nature when I discovered that all lipsticks, whether they cost £50 or £10, are all made in the same factory, in the same way, using the same things, and the rest is just marketing. And I suppose Berkey would be a perfect example of that. But a water ionizer has changed our life in that I try to wash my hair and my face using pH 5 water because of the pH of the skin and the match in that. It removes chemicals without having to use any harsh makeup removers. I just use our tallow soap from Fierce Nature, which I don't have here, but I absolutely love. And I wash my face with pH 5 water. I wash the children's hair with pH 5 water. Then when you get onto the more alkaline scale of water, water becomes extremely powerful. The minute I come back from the fruit and veg market, I try and buy organic as often as I can, if not all the time. It's one of the things that I spend my money on, and I'm comfortable with that because I know the long-term benefit and the long-term kickback of it. But I will take the apples and rinse them in pH 11 water, and you can see the waxes and the pesticides, even or the organic, whatever they use in organic farming. You can see that melting off of the cover of the apple. Whereas otherwise, obviously, you can do stuff like bicarbonate of soda, apple cider to wash your fruit, but pH 11 water is very powerful. It gets stains out of clothes, it helps with the floors, and there's a range of kind of uses, from window cleaning through to getting marks out of clothing, over to cleaning floor tiles, over to soaking whites, over to softening laundry, over to hair, as I explained. When my children are unwell, I often give them the pH 7 water, which is that more kind of like lower than 8.5, which is what we normally drink, because it has healing benefits, and the lower pH actually helps homeopathic remedies, which we use here at home, to assimilate better under the tongue if they're drinking a little bit of that water. So there's a myriad of benefits when you're looking at the pH of water. Again, a little bit of first world problems. If you want to learn more about that, I'm super happy to chat to you about an ionizer, the cost of it and how it's helped us. Why? Because I don't buy laundry softener, which I never did before. I always used white vinegar, but I don't buy, we use water for so much stuff, even to clean the windows, and it's been beautiful, and fruit wash and vegetable wash and all that kind of stuff, and we love it. And we all drink our pH 8.5 ionized water that has been run through a heavy metal filter and a number of contaminant filters. It brings the TDS down in terms of negative particles in the water. I talked about this at the beginning if you missed, and it makes sure that the other particles, the trace minerals, remain intact, like the magnesium, potassium, etc. So I'm very, very happy with that. I'm going to jump from the pH of water over to structuring of water, and then I'm going to close because it's a lot of information to take in. So if you have heard of structuring of water, basically structured water is Water that is affected by nature and forms a beautiful hexagonal shape. If you think about Dr. Emoto, he did that experiment with water where they spoke words and they had thoughts around certain glasses of water, and then they looked under a microscope at the hexagonal shape of the molecule of water, and anything that had been spoken to with love and joy and like praying over your water, blessing your water, all that kind of stuff resulted in a very beautiful hexagonal shape of the structure of water. And any kind of hate, anger, confusion, difficult, edgy environment in a home, that water would be, the molecule would be discombobulated and not look very beautiful. Well, why? What's the point of that? In actual fact, if you can believe it, our body uses water that is structured or more hexagonally pleasing under a microscope more efficiently than if not. So it would be the same as my argument around total dissolvable solids. If you had trace minerals in your water, your body uses it more efficiently in hydrating than if you didn't. So when it comes to structured water, you can buy little machines and devices that you put in your water and it structures the water. In fact, structured water is also called hexagonal water or magnetized water, which means there's probably a little magnet in that wand and you just stir it around and it structures the water for you. Please, you can structure water yourself each and every single day by pouring a glass of water through your filter, feeling happy and comfortable about how you filtered your water, knowing that you've taken water into your own hands. And then for me, prayer is a huge big thing in our house, for me and my children, over our food and over our water. And in my podcast, if you haven't joined it yet, you can go to the link in my bio and follow us on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast through Spotify or Apple, because I'm going to be talking about the spiritual impact of water and food and the power of prayer and blessings over your water and food and otherwise, and the experiences I've had around that. Which is a bit mature for this conversation, but is there if anyone wants that information. But blessing your water, blessing your food. I love you, glass of water. Thank you for everything. Your water is structured. Putting your water out in the sun structures water. Words, thoughts, prayer, important. And you'll see some people that are more scientifically minded, potentially they don't believe in the power of prayer and they haven't experienced the power of prayer. And I pray that one day they do. Those people will drink water and they will swirl it around in their mouth. And that will also help to structure the water so that it's more efficient once it's absorbed through the stomach into the body. So just have a little think about that. If you're not able to filter your water, you're moving around, you live in an Airbnb, you've just got a little countertop filter, you're sure it's not enough, but what can you do? I don't want you to feel downtrodden or disheartened, or people always come to me and be like, I've got to throw out everything I own and I've got to change my whole life and it's impossible and I can't do this all. No. Maybe from today you go, within 6 months time I'm going to have my water sorted, but for now, every day I'm going to say a prayer of blessing of my water, or I'm going to hold my water and think good thoughts about my water and drink it. And then voila, you have structured water as if it had come directly from nature. And then do other things to remove those contaminants. Work with activated charcoal, which is something we are super excited to be teaching more about over at OSA. Organic, if you don't follow us, I'll tag below. Have a look at zeolite or other minerals that help absorb heavy metals in your body. You will know if you are heavy metal contaminated because maybe you'll be seeing learning delays or certain defects in the way that your brain fires and your motor neurons and stuff like that. You feel like you might have a bit more brain fog. You're tired. You don't heal as fast as you feel that you should. These are all signs of heavy metal poisoning or toxicity. I had mercury toxicity. And I will be talking about that on my podcast as well. But, if you can't affect the shape, the pH, the filtration, the structure of your water right now, don't be disheartened. Just take this information to heart and know that God has a plan for every man. And when it's your time, everything will fall into place for you. This is not about shaming anyone that doesn't know anything about water. This is just about giving you inspiration that in time your water will be amazing. And when it is, you will not have a day that you take for granted whereby you don't appreciate the energy and the information that you've put into your water. I think that was all that I wanted to say. Again, the symptoms of your body is where I'll end. Please, if you have symptoms that you can't get to the bottom of, reach out to me or reach out to someone that you trust and that you know that can help you, because those will be the earliest signs. Symptoms in your children, extreme thirst, as I said, inability to sweat, maybe your children's milestones aren't tracking. I'm not saying all of this has got to do with water, but I'm saying it's just a fantastic place to start, to just look at your own body and understand then when you need to make change. I spoke about hair, I spoke about chlorine, which you can go back and have a look. I spoke about lab-tested water. The last thing I really want to end on is marketing garb. It's really, really important, please, that you just take your life into your own hands. I say this to everyone on my mastermind. Next time you sit down and you get written a script a mile long, we appreciate allopathic medicine and everything it does for us, but look at everything that you're being prescribed and think about it and understand it. This is what does this in my body. This does that in my body. Okay, I understand this. Okay, I get it. Yes, it makes sense. Okay, this water filter, this is the way it works. Don't just go to Mr. Sir and say, Mr. Sir, this is my budget. Sell me the next best thing. Understand the way the water filtration process is working. Understand what they're selling you. It must make sense to you, and then everything in your life will be right. If you are inclined in the way that I am, and I'm speaking a little bit about my testimony about how I was baptized again in November last year. I always grew up a Christian, but very much lost my way, and I'm going to be talking about the things spiritually that happened to me through water, through food. I know people are going to think it's crazy, and all the beautiful experiences that I had in my journey back to God, which happened at the end of last year, in my podcast. But really, it is important that you just, you pray as well. Pray for guidance, like, lead me in this way. Is this the right? I mean, you can literally pray, is this the right water for me? The water filter for me? Is this guy selling me the right water filter? And you can get guidance on that, but that is a story for another day. Trust your own gut. Get your gut health right. Get your gut clear. Get your water right in your home, water that you're drinking each and every single day. People then say to me, but when I go to restaurants, what must I do? Do I not order bottled water? No, please, don't be ridiculous. It's the same as what I teach on my channel. You can have a burger again. You can have a pizza. You can enjoy your life if you're trying to detox or fast or, all these things you're trying to do. But the thing is about resilience. And the water that you drink 80% of the time will give you great resilience in your body. It will stand your children in excellent stead for their life moving forward, teaching them how they feel as a result of what they drink. If you went and measured the TDS or the pH of a Coca-Cola or any of those soft drinks that are sold to us as drinks, which in actual fact are simply just poisonous, and I'll be getting into signs and symbols on my podcast and a lot of brands and the signs and symbols that are right in front of our face in certain brands that we don't want to see, but listen or don't, it's going to be there for you, that these things are not at all fit for human consumption. And so processed foods and food are the biggest and most powerful and important sources of minerals for you and your children's body. Why? Because we need our food to be grown in rich organic soil, for that minerals from that soil to be assimilated into the food, for us to then eat the food, assimilate the food, and be full and rich of trace minerals. And water is the second best way for us to get trace minerals into the body. I would say if you're feeling thirsty, if you run down, if you have a headache, I do it every time with my children, please, a pinch of Celtic sea salt, rock salt, natural sea salt, unrefined sea salt, never ever iodized salt into your water, and it will help give you that boost of trace minerals. It's a big problem. A widespread problem is how people are lacking in trace minerals. You can always add that into any water that you're drinking, but maybe a little bit complex, but I hope that you took a lot from that today. The last thing I'll add on is, like, people would often say to me, can't I just collect rainwater? Amazing, collect rainwater. Honestly, unbelievable. But ideally you would want to wait for it to rain, say 20 to 30 minutes before you start collecting, so that all the kind of heavy the pollutants that hang in the air are washed away, and then after that you would collect rainwater and you would need to clean it and make sure it's non-contaminated, etc. But we do live in an extremely modern world. Ideally I would be on a farm in the middle of nowhere homesteading, but it's not like for all of us. So I hope that helps. Please leave questions below. Sometimes when I post these lives, the questions that have been asked don't remain, so please feel free to shout through our inbox. Share the water webinar with anyone who you think would enjoy, and next week Thursday I'm going to be doing a webinar on 5G, so please come and join us, and lots of likes and shares if you want this information to be put out there. And please, my podcast second episode is launching on Friday, which is tomorrow. I'm starting off slow on my podcast. The first episode was about all the things that I will start to cover. The second episode is about my journey through entrepreneurship, how I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I was a partner in a wealth management firm in the city, and how that changed for me. In episode 3, I'm going to be talking about what I teach on my mastermind, and then from there I'm going to be talking on my spiritual testimony, how I got lost and how I came back to understanding Jesus and all the things that have to do with Christianity, but from an extremely mature point of view. And I encourage you, if you have any interest there or any curiosity, to come and have a listen. Thank you everyone for joining.